Jay Leno's story didn't begin under studio lights or roaring applause. He was born in 1950 in New Rochelle, New York, and raised in a modest, working-class household shaped by discipline and routine. His father, an insurance salesman, believed in showing up every day and doing the job without complaint, while his mother brought a steady calm that balanced the household. When the family later settled in Andover, Massachusetts, Jay found himself drawn not to attention, but to curiosity. He spent hours taking things apart simply to see how they worked, especially engines. Cars became his first teachers, offering lessons in patience, logic, and persistence. What stood out even then was Jay's comfort with solitude. He didn't chase praise, he chased understanding. That early environment quietly formed the blueprint of his life. Work steadily, stay grounded, and let results speak louder than ambition. Discovering comedy the hard way. As Jay grew older, he realized the same satisfaction he felt fixing machines appeared when he made people laugh. Comedy didn't arrive as a dream, but as an experiment. While attending Emerson College in Boston, he studied speech therapy, not entertainment, yet found himself increasingly drawn to comedy clubs and open mic nights. Instead of waiting for opportunities, Jay created them, helping start his college's first comedy club while working days at a local garage. His routine was relentless. Grease-stained hands during daylight, microphone in hand after dark. Boston's comedy scene in the 1970s was competitive and raw, and Jay blended into it perfectly, speaking like a working man rather than a performer chasing fame. He learned timing the same way he learned mechanics, by repetition and failure. That balance between physical labor and creative effort shaped a work ethic that would define his entire career. The move that changed everything. In 1973, Jay packed his belongings and drove west to Los Angeles, not with confidence but with resolve. Hollywood didn't welcome him warmly. He worked in garages to pay rent while performing stand-up at night, often for little money and smaller crowds. What separated Jay from others wasn't talent alone, but consistency. He saved every dollar, avoided distractions, and treated comedy like a trade rather than a gamble. In 1977, his persistence paid off with an appearance on The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson. That moment didn't make him famous overnight, but it earned him respect. Carson noticed Jay's steady delivery and relatable humor, inviting him back repeatedly. Those appearances quietly positioned Jay as a dependable presence in late-night television. He wasn't flashy, controversial, or unpredictable. He was reliable, and in television, reliability often becomes power, rising through discipline, not drama. Throughout the late 1970s and 1980s, Jay Leno continued building momentum without drawing attention to himself. He appeared in television shows, wrote comedy, and filled in for Johnny Carson whenever needed. While others chased celebrity lifestyles, Jay focused on preparation. Producers trusted him because he was never late, never reckless, and never distracted by scandal. Off camera, his garage remained his refuge. He rebuilt cars piece by piece, finding clarity in the methodical process. To Jay, comedy and mechanics were deeply connected. Both required patience, precision, and humility. By the mid-1980s, NBC recognized his value, officially naming him Carson's regular substitute host. It was a quiet promotion, but a meaningful one. Jay wasn't trying to replace a legend. He was preparing himself to be ready if the moment ever arrived. Taking the Tonight Show throne on May 25, 1992, Jay Leno officially became host of The Tonight Show, stepping into one of television's most demanding roles. The transition wasn't smooth. Critics doubted him, longtime viewers resisted change, and the pressure was relentless. Instead of reacting publicly, Jay focused inward. He worked long hours, refined his monologues, and trusted consistency over charisma. Slowly, audiences adjusted. His humour wasn't sharp or political, but familiar and accessible. Within a few years, ratings stabilised and then surged. By the mid-1990s, The Tonight Show with Jay Leno became the most watched late-night programme in America. Despite the success, Jay's routine barely changed. He continued touring stand-up relentlessly, often performing after taping the show. Fame never replaced effort. For Jay, success meant showing up again tomorrow and doing the work just as carefully as the day before. A reputation built on endurance. As the years passed, Jay became known not just as a host, but as one of the hardest working figures in entertainment. He rarely took time off, even during personal loss. Colleagues often described him as tireless, someone who treated work as structure rather than obligation. By the late 1990s and early 2000s, the show consistently led ratings, generating massive revenue for NBC. Yet Jay remained personally frugal, avoiding indulgence and continuing his routine of stand-up performances across the country. When NBC announced future changes to late-night programming, Jay handled them without public bitterness. His identity wasn't tied to a chair or a title. It was tied to motion. Work, to him, wasn't about visibility. It was about momentum, and that mindset allowed him to navigate industry changes without losing balance. Returning, then letting go. In 2009, Jay stepped away from The Tonight Show, believing his chapter had closed. When network changes later brought him back in 2010, it wasn't framed as a victory, but a responsibility. He stabilized ratings, restored routine, and eventually passed the torch again in 2014, this time permanently. Leaving NBC didn't slow him down. Instead, it redirected him. Jay returned fully to the world he loved most, cars. Jay Leno's Garage became a platform where curiosity replaced competition. The show wasn't about status or exclusivity. It was about craftsmanship, history, and appreciation for engineering. Jay spoke to viewers the same way he spoke to mechanics, clearly and without pretense. The success of the series proved something important. Jay didn't need television to matter. He just needed something meaningful to work on. Life inside the garage. Jay's private garage in Burbank became the physical symbol of his two worlds merging. Housing hundreds of cars and motorcycles, the space functioned less like a museum and more like a workshop. Every vehicle told a story, and Jay knew each one personally. He wasn't collecting for display, but for engagement. He drove them, restored them, and learned from them. The garage reflected his philosophy, preservation through use. Writing columns, filming episodes, and mentoring younger enthusiasts kept him mentally active. Even as he aged, Jay's daily rhythms stayed intact. Wake early, work steadily, avoid excess. His lifestyle choices weren't about discipline for its own sake, but about protecting energy. To Jay, slowing down wasn't rest. It was stagnation, and he had no interest in rusting quietly, facing challenges without stopping. In his later years, Jay faced physical setbacks and personal challenges that would have sidelined many others. Accidents and health scares tested his resilience, but his response remained consistent. Recover, adjust, and return to work. He never framed these moments as tragedies, only interruptions. More difficult was the gradual decline of his wife's health, a deeply private struggle that he approached with care and responsibility. Taking on guardianship wasn't about control, but protection. Jay spoke rarely about it, but when he did, his words were simple and sincere. Love, to him, meant staying present. Even during these moments, he continued working, believing structure helped him stay steady. For Jay, purpose wasn't optional, it was essential. Still moving forward. By 2025, Jay Leno stood as something rare in entertainment, a figure who never reinvented himself, yet never stopped evolving. He continued touring, filming, restoring and learning. His humour remained grounded, his curiosity intact. Audiences didn't see a legend clinging to relevance. They saw a man still engaged with the work that defined him. Jay's life was never about applause or dominance. It was about motion, craft and consistency. One world gave him laughter, the other gave him silence, and together they kept him balanced. After decades in the spotlight, Jay Leno didn't chase a legacy. He simply kept showing up, doing the work, and letting time take care of the rest.